Hey guys, and welcome to the DBGA podcast, a podcast where we interview top level executives inside leading and growing companies in the home goods and e commerce industry. Excited to have our guest today, Eric Shupack. We'll be diving into his story and a little bit about what his company does and some engaging insights into the e commerce industry. So I'll go ahead and kick it off to you, Eric. Could you please introduce yourself and tell a quick snippet of your story and your background prior to working
Okay.
at Fernie Tech?
My name is Eric Shupack. I have been in the furniture industry or been an entrepreneur for the past 50 years. I started way back when. Got my master's degree in clinical psychology and decided that I didn't want to pursue that and started my first company when I was about 23 years old. It was called Après Audio. We actually came up with a line of fully assembled furniture back then. The company lasted for about 8 years or so, and then I had to close it because it wasn't doing too well. It was a good learning experience. And then from there, make a long story short, jumped into a situation with three other gentlemen, and we started a company called Après Audio. Called Altra. Altra is still around actually today. It was bought by Global and then Ameriwood. And That company, we were basically selling RTA furniture to a lot of major big box retailers, whether it be Circuit City, The Wiz, Office Depot, Office Max. There was no such thing as the internet back then. There was no e-commerce back then. And then I guess it was right before 9/11. Um, I started a company called Turboprops, and this company um, we make simulated computers and TVs. These are fake. These are props that are used in settings, either retail or in model homes or even movie studios to show functionality instead of them going out and buying real TVs, which are expensive. They buy these from us. They're made out of 18 gauge sheet steel and glass and acrylics. And we sell every major builder in North America, every retail you can think of. IKEA is a major customer of ours, as an example. And the business has been going on for the past 23 years. Shortly after 9/11, my father, who was a furniture designer, I grew up kind of in his showroom in New York City. He was one of the best. He was very good during the 60s and the 70s. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he dragged me back into the furniture business. Screaming, I didn't want to get back into it. I had enough. And Turboprops was doing very well. But he came up with some really good reasons why I should, and I listened, and we went ahead and we did it. I started relationships, and I had been going to Brazil for my other company prior to Furnitech, so I went back to Brazil, started hunting for. I had a friend over there who was an American, introduced me to several factories, one of which was just horrible. The other one worked out, and that one I worked with until recently. We're now switching factories again. That's just the way it goes, which is good. I'm looking forward to the next chapter. As far as most of my career has been selling brick and mortar. Um, and at that time, we were doing direct container shipments. It was wonderful, but it does have its issues. I mean, when you're selling for physical retailers, they have a lot of demands. There's a lot of deductions. There's a lot of freight related issues, a lot of advertising. I mean, I dealt with all of that stuff. And at one of the trade shows, the High Point Furniture Market, I was in my space. So I had a small space at that time, and a group of 12 people came over to the space and introduced themselves as CSN stores. And I said, "What do you guys do?" I said, "Well, we do e-commerce." I said, "What the hell is e-commerce? What is that?" "Well, you're going to ship one piece at a time to a consumer's home." I said, "Please, I'm not interested." I'm definitely not. You want me to take a 250-pound box of furniture and put it on a truck and ship it to a customer's home unscathed, right? You want me to do that? And I say, ain't going to happen. At that time, we didn't have the kind of trucking logistics companies that we have today, okay? So all you had was people like Shelby Johnson, LTL carriers, and these guys were not shipping, to consumers' homes. They were shipping to stores, okay? It was a B2B situation. So I threw them out of my space, and they came back 6 months later, and this girl, Marcy, comes nose to nose with me, and she said, "Look, we've done our checking on you. We know that you can be really good for this. And what's your fear? What's your greatest fear?" I said, "Freight is my greatest fear. Damage is my greatest fear." She said, "Well, okay, sign here. You're going to give us 3%, and we're going to take care of all the issues, okay?" Well, that little company with 12 people turned out to be Wayfair. It's pretty.
Okay.
So, and Neeraj and Steve were there. The founders of the company were there before they became very successful and rich and whatever. And I went up to Boston. I met with them. They were very nice, and they explained to me what was going on. And they were a much different company back then. I'm not going to get into the personality of Wayfair these days, but it's certainly not the same organization. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. Most everything is done pretty much by software and not by people. And whether you like it or not, that's and they do a good job, no question. Anyway, after Wayfair, I said, "Gee, this." I started learning more about this whole new thing called e-commerce, which was only a couple of percent of the overall sales in furniture at that time. Most furniture people at that time, very very old-fashioned, very stuck in their ways, and even something like a website was not something that they knew how to do. Nobody was doing anything transactional. Everything was informational at that time, and it was very primitive. It was extremely primitive. You weren't even around then at that time, but it's a long time ago. But so I went to see Amazon in Seattle. I met with when they had buyers. They actually had buyers. I was in their old corporate facility and met with this young lady in the boardroom there, overlooking Puget Sound. It was really fantastic. I then went on to Salt Lake City. I met with Hayneedle, with Overstock, and the list goes on. Walmart, and we signed up all these folks. And finally, I'm making a long story short again. There's a lot, a lot that happened in between, but I figured out how to best make sure that our product was suitable for direct shipment to consumers. Spent a lot of time in Brazil. Spent a lot of time with technicians, with engineers. Worked out packaging to the nth degree. Worked out assembly of product much differently than the factory. I really converted the entire factory from an RTA factory to an assembled factory, and it was a lot of convincing and a lot of anguish and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it worked. So here I am now selling all these folks, and I am still informational. I'm not transactional. I then made a decision. I said, if Apple can do it, I can do it. So I went transactional. I got a hold of my sister-in-law, who is a web designer, and she designed my first website. And so we posted all of our stuff. I couldn't afford to promote or advertise on Google. And by the way, in 22 years I've been doing this, or 23 years, whatever, I have never given Google a dime, not one dime, okay, of advertising. As a matter of fact, I have never spent a dime on advertising. Everything that we've ever done has either been through the good fortune of having relations with Wayfair, Overstock, Hayneedle, all these people that were advertising for me, okay? And I said, why do I need to spend if they're promoting my brand? What I needed to do, however, was to make sure I had the best of the best in terms of SEO, search engine optimization, having the proper links, having the proper story to tell, all the blogs and the newsletters and things like that. And I hired some young person who who was still with me, and we're constantly updating and doing stuff. And I mean that really is what it's all about. Is SEO is the magic, is really the magic sauce. And if you don't have SEO, and it's not that complicated, because really what you're doing is you're psychologically profiling in general who your customer is. So you got to know who that customer is. You have to know the demo. You know your product. You know your price points. Who you want to sell it to. You know, in my case, most of my customers are usually baby boomers, because baby boomers have money. Uh, Millennials, Generation X, Z, Y, whatever letter we're up to these days. Kids are struggling today. I have two children of my own who are millennials, and they make very good salaries, but yet they can barely afford to pay their rent in New York here. Okay, it's really troubling. Baby boomers, on the other hand, have money, and they're about 70 million strong, so we go after them pretty tenaciously. I have kept expenses low, and that's very, very important. You can't fall into these software traps. Every single day, I am inundated by young people. I got the secret sauce. I'm gonna give you ROI of 40, 50, 60% in 30 days. All these false promises, ridiculousness, right? You got to delete all of this. Delete it all. It means absolutely nothing. I don't listen. I understand what young people are facing today, and everybody's trying to get a piece of this AI nonsense. Okay, at the end of the day, it's all about connecting with your audience, connecting with your customer, providing the services, making sure that they understand who you are and what you're doing, and it's old school. It's all old school. You could Technology is not a means to an end. It's just a means to something, to your goal. What is your goal? Your goal is to sell product in a meaningful way, to make a profit, and to move on. Okay. And if we had a situation during the pandemic and even subsequent to that where um, we have pre-order on our website. People can come on our website and they can pre-order. They pay up in full for everything, and they wait. I had people waiting since October, believe it or not, for the last container that just arrived. Container was delayed because of global events, the Suez Canal, with what's going on over there, the Panama Canal, no water, and then you had supply chain issues, and the steamship companies are reallocating assets, and on and on and on and on. It's a whole mess. So, the one thing, I only had two people that actually canceled, and one of which was kind of crying on the phone that her husband was going to kill her. She didn't cancel it. And I said, no, no problem. So, out of like 70 customers, I only had two that. Why? Because I got on the phone, I called every single customer, I texted them, I updated them every step of the way, and that's the secret sauce. There's nothing more. There's no AI that's going to do this for you. There's no other software that's going to do this for you. It's you interacting with your customer. That's as simple as we are human beings. And we have fallen short of that expectation of interaction because of social media. I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm not going to go into a whole dissertation now on social media, but it's really not the healthiest thing for our society whatsoever, for the world for that matter, especially for young people who are developing. You need to spend time with other people. Okay, that's the secret sauce. So if I'm able to impart anything to my audience today, who are thinking about whatever you're going to do on the internet, whatever e-commerce plan you have in mind, whatever you think you can sell, make sure that you're connecting with your customer. Okay, and let software be an aid to it. It's not the end. It's just something. It's a tool like any other tool that you would have. Okay, that's the most important thing. As far as what is happening what is happening today in the economy and where the furniture industry is, where discretionary spending is going in general is not in a good place at the moment. Subsequent to the pandemic, people wanted experiential things, so they were taking whatever money they had and they were traveling, going to Europe, going to Italy, especially getting on planes, going on boats, whatever. The last thing they wanted to do was stay home. All right. They bought furniture during the pandemic. That was probably, I hate to say it, it sounds horrible, but during the pandemic, we did more business than ever before. I mean, it was incredible. It really was. Having said that, then you had finally had the Federal Reserve wake up late after calling inflation a transitory issue. It's not a transitory issue. They realized that it wasn't. And we had zero interest rates. You had 3.5% mortgage rates. Okay. People buying homes, home sales were going through the roof, resales, price of homes was going crazy, right? Everybody was buying new homes that could afford to buy a new home back then because the rates were so low for mortgages. Okay. But once the Fed started raising rates to curb inflation, approximately 500 and some odd basis points later, now we're talking about mortgage rates of 7.1%. People can't afford that. Even people in my age group, let's say I have a home, and my home, I have a 3% mortgage, something like that, right? And I have maybe $50,000, $60,000 left on the mortgage. Okay, fine. It's very, very easy to deal with. If I had to now sell my house and go get a new home, I'm now going to be into over a 7% mortgage. And not so easy for people who are in their older years. Okay, so that's now the home builders. If you're looking at economics, current economic, what's going on today, home builders, whether it be D.R. Horton, Richmond Homes, Toll Brothers, you name, we sell all of them, so we know what's going on. They're helping to subsidize their buyers, and that's the only reason they're doing as well as they are. Toll Brothers sells multi-million-dollar homes. Okay. However, they realize that young people cannot afford these homes with the mortgage rates the way they are. So they're helping young people afford these homes. Okay. So discretionary spending has basically come to a standstill right now. It's not good at all. Whether it's cars, furniture, watches, appliances, electronics, nothing is really selling right now. People, especially now we're entering into summer, people want to be outdoors and have some fun. Okay. That's yeah, okay. I listen, the one thing that I want to impart is don't even think about getting into business unless you have a really super solid plan with solid objectives and most importantly, have money. You got to have money. You want to be in e-commerce, you want to be a player, you want to do things because at the end of the day, even though I am not software adverse. I'm not. I think it has a place. But these young folks who've come up with some great platforms that I engage right now, they have subscriptions. So it could be $49 a month, $69, $99, one guy paid $450. At the end of the day, it adds up. Okay, so you got to be able to pay these folks. They're not going to do it for free. Okay, don't try to get into e-commerce thinking you can do it on somebody else's back. You can't. I self-finance everything I do here, and I'm very fortunate that I can do that. I don't borrow money from anybody anymore. I'm not advocating that that's the only thing you can do. You can borrow money. Fine, go ahead and borrow money. You're going to borrow it at, maybe you'll get it at 11%, 12%, something like that. So you just got to make sure that you're handling the finances, or you have somebody on board with you that understands fiscal responsibility and that can guide you along those paths. Okay, so that's very, very important. If you don't have money, you don't have a business. And secondly, the second most important thing is in your business, regardless of whether you're selling a product or whether you're selling a service, you better start making some money. I don't buy this nonsense that certain large e-commerce companies that put forth years ago was that our main goal right now is getting as many eyeballs coming to our website as possible. We'll worry about how we make money later. BS. That's no good. No. You got to make money from the get-go, from day one. You cannot spend you can have all the revenue growth in the world. If you're not making profit, you ain't going nowhere. You can't spend revenue. You can only buy things with profit. Okay? Very, very, very important. Otherwise, you get into a real bad deficit situation, and shortly thereafter, you'll be out of business, period. That's the most important. If I can get anything across, the main things is, number one, understand your audience. Number two, connect with them in the most meaningful way possible. Number three, have a really, really good business plan and a reason for you to exist. If there's no reason for you to exist, don't bother. Okay. Somebody asked me, like, would you start another furniture company today if you had the opportunity? No freaking way. No way.
Why not?
Be, because it is. I'm a seasoned veteran. I know the ins and outs of this industry. I am kind of starting over right now, and I'll get into that in a second. But the bottom line is to start, as a young person, I can't think of anything that you could possibly bring to the industry that the industry does not have already. Okay. So, there were several companies that came on board, that very innovation in terms of sofas. You can buy sofas modularly. You can change the covers of the sofa. You can incorporate music and all kinds of technology into the sofas. And so, that's all nice and well, but there's only one of those companies out there. Furniture is furniture. You got to have good style. You got to understand the nature of the beast you're selling. You got to know the audience that you're selling to. And I know my audience very, very well. I understand furniture industry extremely well. And so I feel like I am qualified and I have money. I can do what I want to do. I look at it very simply this, and I'm not going to get into a whole thing here, but when you're talking about your individual wealth and creation of wealth, you can do it in the stock market, which I do. You can buy stocks and bonds and money market accounts, or there are other asset classes. Of course, there's crypto, there's artwork, there's watches, there's all kinds of stuff, right? In furniture, I consider that's my asset class. And unlike when I buy Microsoft or Apple or Nvidia stock, which I am a passive investor, right? I can't run those companies. I can't tell them what to do. When it comes to my company, if I invest $100,000 in a couple of containers worth of goods, I feel pretty good about it, because I know I can take that 100,000 and turn it into probably 250,000 in terms of overall gross profit. Okay. and it'll be done over time. And I have control over the situation to the nth degree, and I like that. So I don't mind making those kinds of investments. Do you understand? These are basic economic things that are very, very important for people. If you're going to put your money on the line, or you're going to borrow money to buy product from some supplier in China or God knows where in the world, then you better damn know well that what this factory is, what kind of quality they have, how they're going to ship to you, what kind of packing they have, and if you can make money selling their product. Because if you can't, you take a total loss on the thing. It's very, very important you know who your partners are. I've been working in Brazil for over 23 years, so I know I'm very. When I go to Brazil, it's like me going home. I have like my Brazilian family, I have my American family here. Uh, so sip of coffee for a sec. As far as trends in the market and so on and so forth, as I said, right now discretionary spending is almost at a standstill. You got consumer debt that is over $1 trillion. Okay, American consumer, we comprise what, 70% of GDP, which is pretty, it's just always very. That's what capitalism is. Okay, it's great when it works. When it works, when you have that many people who are underwater right now with credit card debt to the tune of roughly on average $25,000, the average credit card debt. Okay, that's pretty high. And when you're talking about interest rates of 21 to 23%, there ain't a hell of a lot you can do other than try to do your best to get the hell out of that, right? So between that and what the Fed has been doing, hopefully the Fed will start easing soon. Okay, we'll start lowering rates and take some of the pressure off, so we can start selling cars and furniture and everything else again. Unfortunately, the Federal Reserve has got a target. I'm not going to get into all their nonsense, but they have a target of 2% for their rates. Okay, for inflation to get down to. We are as close to that rate as humanly possible. Okay, but they want 2%. It can't be 2.5. Can't be 3. It's nuts. It makes. I spoke to some very smart people, a lot smarter than me, and I asked them, what is it with the 2%? It's totally arbitrary. Totally arbitrary. It's something that they came up with years and years ago, and that's the target. Okay, fine. In the meantime, unemployment is still very low. However, slowly but surely, AI is going to start replacing a lot of young people and a lot of job roles. It is. It just is. Okay, whether they like it or not. And anyway, so this is the state. I'm not going to get into a whole economic discussion here, but you folks can do that on your own. I suggest you do. You learn as much as you can about what's currently going on. On a more positive note, everything cycles, right? I've been through 2008 was the Great Recession we had. You weren't even you were a kid back then.
Yeah, I was young. Yeah, I was
You were
young.
very young, but you can certainly ask your parents about 2008. It was actually from 2007 till about 2009. The world was ending. I mean, I'm not exaggerating that point. If it wasn't for some very, very smart people here in the United States, some very, very smart people that took the bull by the horn, everybody was brought into the White House at that time. Federal Reserve, banks, everybody sat around this big table, and it was decided nobody leaves this room until we come up with an answer. Lehman Brothers went out of business. Okay, at that time, it was horrible. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their homes. The degree of culpability was not just on the part of these horrible bankers who were doing really bad things. I'm not going to get into all that stuff, but you can look up history also. But certainly consumers were certainly culpable also, because oh man, he's going to give me all that money for and I'm not making any money really. I mean, it was just a really bad situation. Okay, thank God we got out of that, and then we had decades of prosperity, 2 decades of prosperity. Even during the pandemic, things were pretty good for people like me and other people in e-commerce. All right, let's be more positive for the rest of this conversation, because there's a lot to be really sad and depressed about right now. I mean, what's going on in the world is just a horrible, horrible thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So, whether you're in United, so the bottom line is, where are we going as an industry, and what seems to be, look, I would say this in terms of my folk, my people, my demographics. Okay. The people that we sell mostly to, baby boomers are, if they are selling their homes, some of them are, a lot of them are, Kids are gone. They're downsizing. They may be going to these 55 and over communities or whatever. So they don't have to, worry about anything, right? They have their swimming pools, their shuffleboards. God, I would never do that, but a lot of people opt to do that. They make a lot of new friends. All right, they're going to have people over their home. A lot of them are either it can be townhouses, condos, but a lot of them are actually private homes. So they want to decorate these homes. I am working with a company that does is one of the largest in the country. It's been around for like 100 years. It does these lists. They have data on everybody in the United States. So I am buying lists now of people that just bought homes in the last 6 months to 12 months, and also age group. I want a certain age group. I want a certain salary level. I want a certain wealth level. I want a certain geographic level. I'm really focused and targeted, and I would suggest when anybody who's interested in starting an e-commerce business, you really got to get down into the weeds when you're talking about your audience, who it's going to be. Okay. So we and given that our average ticket price on our TV consoles, as an example, is about 1,500, 1,600, maybe even higher these days. And pretty soon we're getting into new categories, sofas, all kinds of beautiful. I'm working with a new factory in Brazil, who's it's one of the largest tanneries in Brazil. So they supply, leather products for, like Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and a whole host of other manufacturers of leather products. And they have their own line of beautiful, beautiful sofas and casual seating, club chair, all kinds of stuff. And the stuff ranges in style from anything from traditional to transitional, mostly, I would say, transitional, contemporary, and modern. Okay. And quite frankly, we're talking about what's going on, what the trends are right now in 2024, 2023. 2023 was just a nasty year, but right now we're looking at earthy, grounding colors. These are the trends. People are psychologically, what they're putting in their homes, they don't want flash, they don't want sharp, crazy primary colors, all maybe a splash here and there. But generally speaking, they're going to focus on greens like outside trees, brown, cream shades. Gray is still a very very strong color, especially when it comes to sofas. I mean, because people want to start with a kind of a neutral palette, and they'll walk into the room. The walls can be gray also, and then they can start with artwork, with pillows, with area rugs, and have splashes of color, with little seating products that can have more color, if you will. But it's really it's a psychological factor that enters into the way people decorate their homes. You walk into your house, you want to feel good about walking into your house. You're going to spend money in decorating, you want to feel good about it, right? And you don't want to listen to interior decorators telling you what. You got to listen to your heart. That's who you want to listen to. Okay. Um, so definitely, gray is coastal grays and grays. We work with coastal grays in our wood furniture. We work with species like oak and walnut is extremely popular right now. Extremely popular. We can't get enough of that. Maple is very strong. Cherry, so. Darker finishes tend to be more in line with people's expectations right now when it comes to case goods, especially what we do. We also work with something in Portuguese called pau ferro, which is ironwood in English. It's the most gorgeous wood you've ever seen. It's like rosewood. It's a cousin of rosewood. So, entertainment now, which we really specialize, we have specialized in that in home office and occasional tables. Now we'll get into the seating. But when it comes to entertainment, these are, I call it functional art. That's what we sell is functional art. And people don't buy my product because they just want to have another piece of furniture. They have a desire to create a surround sound entertainment venue within their home. They don't want to go out to the movies and spend $150, on lousy popcorn and Coca-Cola and stuff like that, and somebody sneezing on the back of their head or something like that. It would be much nicer for them to be comfortable in their own home. I do it with my wife quite often now. I have like an 85-inch TV. I have surround sound speakers all over the place. I can go on YouTube. I can put on any jazz concert or any rock concert that I want. I can put any movie on that I want. Have we like to cook, so we can have a nice, or we bring in from great restaurants, okay? and our own cocktails. We do everything, and have our friends over, and it's a much more intimate uh, environment. It's a much more comfortable. You're saving a lot of money, and much better. So that is the saving grace for my category, and it's still growing at roughly 14%. Is the TV, it's entertainment category. Home office, of course, with people more and more people working at home. The trend in home office is still fairly strong, so people are buying writing desks and things like that. Filing cabinets, not so much anymore, but desks are really important with some drawers and stuff like that. Um, and what else can I say? Millennials have very similar aspirations to their parents. I would say they want, product has clean designs that it can easily be incorporated into their lifestyles without costing them an arm and a leg. My daughter, who's she's like 37, 38. Of course, her daddy is in the business, so she doesn't pay for furniture. But she's very critical, and I like that. I'll say, Danielle, what do you think? And she said, oh, it looks like crap. I don't like. She'll tell me, and she's got a good eye for, just like her grandfather, who was my father, who was a designer. In terms of sofas, I think curved sofas are very much in line with people's expectations today. They really just they kind of they're kind of warm, and they embracing in their structure. And so sulfur is done in beautiful leathers. It could be soft gray. It could be off color white. It can be like powder blue. Things of that sort are really very much in vogue right now. You're not going to see like reds and purples and all this crap that I've seen in the past. They want to bring nature into the home as much as possible. They want that, with all the stress that young and old people have, that we all have. People, when they come home, they want to be de-stressed. And home furnishings and home decor, lighting is very, very. I'm not a lighting expert, but certainly lighting is extremely important. The last thing you want to do is walk into a room and have these bright lights in your head. That's really, it's horrible. I mean, it's actually more important than anything in that room is lighting. Okay, so you got to have the right lighting. Go to an expert on that. Okay, I'm not an expert, but somebody who there are people out there who specialize in lighting effects in the home, in terms of decorators, and that's what if I was setting up a new room, that's exactly what I would do. And like I said, area rugs and throw pillows and things like that tend to bring a room together. So that seems to be the trends and what's happening in the world of furniture. Price points. The furniture industry is its own worst enemy. Has been for since I've been in the business. There was this notion that people will not spend money on home furnishings. It's just So we go to the trade shows and you'd see back in the '70s a sofa, 2-3 seater sofa selling for $7.99. You can still find that sofa selling for $7.99 40 years later. It's ridiculous. People will spend money if they see the value, if they see the quality, if they see that we have a sustainable event going on here. What could be more sustainable, more organic than selling leather furniture or selling wood furniture? Okay, these are organic. Mother Nature creates these products. And I love why I'm in this industry right now. It's not for money anymore, and I'm not trying to sound haughty or arrogant or anything like that. It really is for the love of good design and for turning people on to good design and connecting with people. I speak to people on a routine basis, people in my age group, CEOs of other companies, a hell of a lot smarter than I'll ever be. I learn from these folks. I learn from young people too, for that matter. Okay, I love mentoring young people. I think it's a real joy to help people get started in their careers, or how to start creating wealth. It's not just working. You can be out there making a couple $100,000 a year and be poor. You got to know how to use your money wisely, how to invest your money, whether it be in your business or creating your personal wealth. And you got to start as young as possible. My kids started when they were very young because of me, because I pushed them. I'm not going to give you a whole, lesson on that right now, but essentially it's going with certain ETFs that make a lot of sense, and Everybody knows Nvidia and Microsoft and Apple and Google and all these companies. Great. You can't afford. Most people can't afford to spend $800 or $900 on a share of Nvidia right now. So what do? You buy an ETF. You buy the triple Qs, the Invesco triple Q ETF. Monitors, it's the top 100 of Nasdaq. Okay, so all these great companies are in there. Start out with $1,000. That's it, and then you start feeding that baby. And by the time you get to my age, you'll be a multimillionaire too. It's not that complicated. Warren Buffett. That's all he did his entire life. I mean, I don't understand. The guy's, I don't know what kind of traveling of the world he's seen. I mean, the guy, that's all he does. He reads Moody's, thousands of pages of Moody doc. I mean, these guys, that's what he loves. That's his passion. Okay. Everybody's got to do what they like to do. So that's my story. Any questions?
No, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And there's very wise advice that you've shared too. So thank you for this. But yeah, now I want to learn more about your company. So could you tell me about um, what products are over at Furnitech, and also what unique value do your products bring to your
Okay,
customers?
good. So one of the things that I alluded to before was, in terms of how you operate your business, very, very important. Costs can get out of control very fast. And if you turn on your email and you see all the spam that's coming, all these young people with all these great ideas, and it's all nonsense. Once in a blue moon, and you got to learn how to filter out those. Once in a blue moon, you come up with, and I did come up with somebody. I'm not going to give him a plug right now, but once in a blue moon, you come up with somebody that really has something of value to offer you in terms of a software that's going to further enhance your visibility on the internet, on your website, and things like that. Um, you got to keep a handle on. You got to costs are you got to understand expenses, and like I said before, having enough money to start your business or keep it sustained and pay your bills on time. There's nothing more important. The only thing more important than your credit score is your health. You got to have your health first, and then a good credit score. Anything below $700, 700 is not a good score. It's not. You may still be able to get a credit card, but you're not going to get very far. Okay, you got to have credit scores between 700 800 at least, I think. And don't be fooled by Google and all this nonsense with bidding for keywords and all this crap. It's all a bunch of nonsense. Okay, you don't need to give Google a dime, not one dime. Make sure you have, as I said before, make sure you have your SEO guy, whoever that's going to be doing that for you. Make sure your SEO is a constant thing. Okay, it's just if you want to interact, you want to relate to your potential customer, then you have to know how they're thinking. What is the thought process that people go through when they're buying a piece of TV console? It can start with something as simple as, well, I have a 75-inch TV. Okay, we'll start with that. So therefore, I need a cabinet that's at least 70 inches long. Okay, so that's a good place to start. So when you're talking about keywords and things like that and links, okay, make sure you cover that. I want a cabinet that's done in wood. I like wood and I like walnut. I want a cabinet in walnut. Okay, fine, cover that. What about internal wire management? What about back panel? What about ventilation and wiring? What about is it fully assembled? What about freight? Is it free? Is the product going to be delivered into my home? Do I have to bring it from the curb? These are all questions that need to be asked. Okay. But the most important thing, is your cost structure. You got to make sure you're making money. I can't emphasize that enough. If you have something, you buy something at 50 cents, you want to sell it for at least $1 is my philosophy. Okay.
Mhm.
People, and you got Wayfair. I mean, they're a public company. I'm not telling you anything that's, you know, I mean, Wayfair, their GP was, for the longest time, was like 23, 24%. It was very, very low. That should be their net. That shouldn't be their GP. Now they're trying to bump up their GP, slowly but surely, but they're still not making the money that they should be making. They're making a lot of they're creating a lot of sales, no question about it. Their revenue is growing like crazy. But you have to eventually, your shareholders who own your stock, they want to see profit. You don't buy a company unless they have, unless they're showing a profit. Okay. Next question. Any?
No, very clear. Thank you.
I don't know. I don't
Um,
know what else have I not covered that I should be covering for your audience.
no, there's a couple more questions that I want
Go
to
ahead,
ask.
please ask as many as you like.
Of course, you've been an entrepreneur for more than 20 years. You've built multiple companies. Um, what would you say is the type of mindset that is needed to be a successful CEO?
You got to have an enormous amount, and anybody who and you see on CNBC being interviewed all day long. These guys are very very passionate. I mean, they got their companies to the point where, now they're going public, and all of a sudden the valuations go from they may not have made dime one, but all of a sudden their companies are worth like $2 billion. Which is kind of crazy, right? So, but the one thing that they all share is their passion for whatever they've done, whether they're software engineers, whether they're designers, whatever the hell they do. And, they got a great idea for a food service business. I've heard a couple of things of late that I thought were kind of interesting. But you got to have real passion. I mean, you're not working for somebody. You've done this, you're doing this yourself. You may eventually have other people working with you, or maybe you have third party contractors, which is what I would recommend. I wouldn't start hiring people. I wouldn't start getting into salaries with people right off the bat, unless you got private equity backers that are giving you $1 million to do all this jazz. And I wouldn't recommend them either. Try to do as much of this on your own as possible, because private equity firms have only one thing and one thing in mind: is getting a return on their investment. A lot of major companies in the furniture industry recently went out of business. We recently went out of business because of private equity firms, because they're greedy, not greedy. But their mandate is, if the company that we now put money into is not making money, we're going to get the hell out and we're going to close it. So you have Thomasville and Lane, many other companies, Mitchell Gold, gone, gone, gone. There's a major company that was a generational for 120 years. They're gone. I'll think of the name in a second. They're a huge company. Thousands of people got notices one morning. Don't come to work. Okay. So being when you're starting out, I mean, there are different levels at which I've been doing this for a long time, but if you're starting out, then you got to do everything. You got to learn everything. You got to know accounting. You got to know buying and selling. You got to know, in this case, e-commerce, what makes a good, what's going to be transformational for you and your ideas that you have, whether it be service or a product or whatever. Yeah, bring in third party people to come up with a really incredible, very compelling web design. Okay, very very important. You want to be e-commerce? It all starts here with this little screen in front of us, right? I mean, it's amazing that that billions and billions of dollars can be transacted on a little screen like this every single day. I mean, look at Amazon. My God, how many times do we all go to Amazon? I mean, once a day, I'm going. Oh, I need paper towels for the house. Yeah, but I don't want to go to the store. Amazon brings it right to my house the next day or that same day. So being a CEO, being a founder, you have to really be willing to make all the sacrifices that you can possibly think of. That you're going to make those sacrifices. And in my case, my wife was working, as a dental hygienist way back when. She was making a good salary back then. She was a professional, and she gave me the latitude to do what I needed to do, whether it be going to grad school and then starting my first companies and stuff like that. And it was, she's a good lady, and not everybody's going to have that kind of situation. So you got to have passion. You got to have, the ability to just sacrifice everything and focus on doing nothing else but your company, and making sure whoever you're going to hire on a third party, that they've been vetted very carefully, and they're not taking you for a ride. That they really know what you're trying to do. And as I said many times already during this interview, is having money. You got to have money. If you don't have any money to start a company, don't bother. Just don't bother. Don't frustrate yourself. Go work for somebody. Not everybody can look. There's no such thing as 9 to 5. Okay, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
24/7 and 24/7. I can get up at 3:30 in the morning, come home, sit over here at my desk. I have a real office downstairs. I have this desk here in my bedroom because I had joints replaced. That all four of my joints were replaced at one point. my two knees and my hips. So instead of having, I have a huge house. So instead of going up and down the stairs, which I couldn't do easily, I decided to put a little office in my bedroom. We have three offices downstairs. And that's where my wife is most of the time, and my son also. So but anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is that, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I get an idea, I come sit here, and I do what I have to do. That's it. You gotta do what you have to do to make it work. And believe me when I tell you, I mean, I can't even get across to your audience the pain, the anguish, the tears, the emotional upheaval, the times when I just wanted to crawl up in a ball on the floor and cry. And I'm not talking figuratively. I mean it. It's an emotional roller coaster, the likes of which most people cannot do. You just can't. They just don't have it within them. It's much better for them to go to work, come home. That's it. End of the story. Okay. So I would say to you, if you cannot be myopic and be very laser focused, and you're not willing to put up with the downside, it's not going to be a bed of roses by no means. I almost killed myself. I did everything. I've unloaded 40-foot high cube containers. I've driven, the forklifts. Oh my God, the stories I can tell you, we don't have time for. All I can tell you is they were the most painful events in my life, other than, having certain illnesses that I've overcome too, which I won't go into now either. But having a wife who is having somebody who is really super supportive and who is paying the bills back then, because I was bringing in no money whatsoever in the early days, 40 years ago. You got to make major sacrifices. Okay, and if you are going to take on private equity, you got the greatest things in sliced bread, and you think it's going to do well, and you got software, you got AI, everybody's AI this, and it's all nonsense. It's not all nonsense. It's getting out of hand. It's really getting out of hand. You got something like that, you want to bring in private investors, there's plenty of places to do that. It really depends on what you want the company to be. You want a small family run business, or do you want to turn it into a public company? You have your ambitions and your goals are all mitigated by your ability and endurance and psychological profile. And it's such that I could never do those things. I've worked with people, friends of mine, who started public companies, some of them successful, some of them failed. I saw what they went through. It's mind boggling. It really is truly mind boggling, because you know, you start talking with banks and financial firms and hedge funds and things like this. I mean, it can be really overwhelming. I never wanted that. I like my little world. I like controlling my little world. And I don't have to make $100 million. I just don't. I don't need to. If I have, I'm very happy where I am right now in my life. I have enough money to live for the rest of my life, as long as I don't go out buying Lamborghinis and yachts. Nor could I probably get in and out of a Lamborghini. So
Problem solved.
I probably could. I could definitely afford to buy one if I wanted to. But I mean, so what? Where am I going to drive it?
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing this. Now I have there's one last topic that I want to touch upon, because we're a data analytics company, so I'm always curious to hear about people's experiences when it comes to leveraging data within an e-commerce company. So could you share some insights on the role of data analytics and understanding consumer preferences and trends within your company, and how does data really influence decision making and strategies in the e-commerce
Well,
industry?
you call it data. I mean, there's many other. Data is a word that's overused as well. I don't like the word data. People think in binary terms. When you talk about data, thinking zeros and ones, zeros and one. It's not zeros and ones. You're talking about human beings, which are very complex organisms. If you want to sell a machine, then you can look at all the data in the world. You want to sell a human being, then you got to have a really good the psychological underpinnings of what goes into you or your product or your service connecting with that consumer has nothing whatsoever to do necessarily with the way data is defined. Data is a useful tool. That's what it is. So as I explained to you before, if I want to enrich our mailing list, we do a lot of mailings. I never touched upon that, but a lot of the money that we spend is on digital marketing, on those types of things, and we do that routinely, mailings to people, making newsletters, blogs, whatever, making them, apprising them of new things that we're doing as a company, apprising them of discounts, sales that we have going on, reconnecting with people that have bought stuff in the past. Maybe they bought a TV console, maybe they're now interested in coffee and end tables. Who knows? So yeah, using data in that sense is very, very important. The other way of using data, as I said before, is enriching those lists. Okay, so I'm paying, I will be paying thousands and thousands of dollars to this company to provide me with data on specific goals, specific groups of people. Okay, that's the kind of data that I'm interested in. Okay, I want customers. I want as many customers coming to Furnitech as humanly possible, and that doesn't happen by it doesn't happen by accident. You got to work hard at that. And just because you have good SEO and have good placement on the first page of Google on search doesn't necessarily mean anything. You got to go above and beyond. So that's where you got to use, and that's old school. What this company does is real old school. I mean, they happen to use collection of that data is being used, using modern technology and stuff like. But it's that kind of information. I rather use the word information that you got to have access to in order to really grow your list and grow that following that you want so desperately. Because without these people, and I think I have good ideas in terms. I mean, you go to the guy and he says, "Well, what do you want?" And I say, "Well, as I said, I want people in certain age groups, certain demographics, certain geographic location, people that home ownership goes along with furniture and TVs and appliances. If you don't own a home, you don't need furniture. You don't need TVs or appliances. If you bought a new home, then more than likely, I'm sorry, I'm going to hang up
No
on this
worries.
person. If you own a home, then more than likely you do need to have a refresh. And especially, I would say people in my age group, when either a spouse dies or they're downsizing, the kids left, whatever, and now you're moving into instead of that 5,000 square foot house, now you're living in a 2,000 square foot house. Obviously, the furniture is going to, what you had before is not necessarily going to work. Okay, so you want to have nice, clean, cool, beautiful, welcoming furniture and home goods in your home. And that's where I want to be able to connect with these people. At that particular, they talk about marketing funnels, right, and stuff like that in the lingo of the e-commerce world. So you want to be able to capture those folks as they bought the home, they're excited about the house, they're looking around, and oh, gee, okay, I have a bed. First thing you're going to buy is a bed because you have a place to sleep, right? Second thing you're going to buy is a couple of chairs because you have a place to sit. And then you're going to probably think, oh, gee, I'm going to sit here. I want to watch TV. So either you have a TV that you brought with you, or you got to go out to Best Buy and get a new TV. And you know what? I have a cable box. I have a AV receiver. I have all this other crap going on. I'm going to buy a TV console. They need to know that I exist, that I'm here for them. And as far as one of the things that I want to emphasize that you brought up before that I don't think I answered forthrightly was that in terms of competition, yeah, you got to know who the hell you're going up against, and you got to look at their product assortments, and you got to look at their price points, and you got to say to yourself, "Am I in the game or am I not in the game?" I can tell you without any equivocation, I destroy my competition in terms of value, in terms of price. Why? I don't take salaries. I don't have anybody. I have people in the warehouse that work. I have independent contractors that I got to pay. But outside of that, that's it. I don't take a salary. My wife doesn't take a salary. We're LLC corporations, so everything gets passed through to us anyway. And so, I don't have a vice president of marketing making 150,000 a year. I don't give Google one dime. Okay, I do none of that. And that's so instead of my cabin being 3,000 like one of my competitors is, let's say, my cabin is 1,500. Literally, I mean, I can be $1,000 less than them, and still make 55 points GP, which is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So that's those are the things that yeah, you got to be competitive. You got to have value.
Mhm.
And when people, I ask customers, and one first thing, how'd you find out about us? That's the first thing you want to know. How'd you find out about? Well, I saw you on Reddit. Oh,
Oh,
okay, yeah, Reddit is big for us. I have a very strong following on Reddit, and They even talk about me personally. Said this guy Shupack, he's really chatty and everything, but he's a cool guy. He really knows his stuff, and his product is well priced, and it's really a good value, and it's good quality. So I would say 70% of our social media focus is on Reddit. And I would say right now we're going after in a big way LinkedIn. Because why? Who goes to LinkedIn? People, young people who are pretty smart, looking for jobs or offering jobs. Demographically speaking, they probably have some money or they're about to make some money. I want to connect with them. I have nothing against millennials. I sell millennials a lot. I sell my generation more, but I sell millennials too, who have money.
mhm.
So that's it. That's the story.
Okay. One last
Yep.
question. You shared so many little tips and tricks that you've implemented to ensure the success of your business. If you had to share a few more, like what tips would you give to an entrepreneur that is just starting? Um, what are some of the most important things you've learned in your career as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think I've shared most of them with you already. Even Warren Buffett, especially. I mean, before he buys a company, he does reads mountains of documents, and case in point was Apple. That's his. I think is yeah, it's his largest holding. I think he sold maybe about 23% of his Apple shares. Now the guy has like 150 billion dollars worth of Apple stock. I mean, and why did he buy Apple? Because it's the best run company in the world as far as he's concerned. Okay. And I mean, hopefully Tim Cook, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but hopefully Tim Cook during the Worldwide Developers Conference in June will show reason why we should all be holding on to Apple. Right now, the stock is doing okay. But, quite frankly, I ain't going out and buying a new iPhone. Are you?
I bought a new one not too long ago, so not now. It's not part of
Well,
the plan.
I've had this XR or whatever the hell this is. I've had this for years and years. I used to buy a new one like almost every year, and it's just crazy. I mean, I'm a shareholder and all that kind of jazz. I want to support the company, but at the end of the day, you better show me something exciting. And quite frankly, I've seen nothing, absolutely nothing coming out of Apple that's been exciting in terms of new product. The headgear, down the line somewhere, maybe in the healthcare, maybe in medicine, maybe in engineering. It'll work. Augmented reality, all that kind. But in terms of people going out and spending $3,000-4,000 on headgear, no freaking way. It's not going to happen. So the most important things. Look, as I said before, I said it over and over again. First and foremost is having a really super great idea and feeling really strong about it, and vetting other people, talking to your friends, talking to your, what do you guys think? Am I on the right track of something? Do I have a really good idea or not? And that's why I would say in the furniture industry, no, definitely, I would not recommend any young person get into the furniture business right now. It's a tough industry, and unless you really have been in it for a while and understand I understand my place. I'm never going to be a hell of a lot bigger than I am today, and that's fine. I don't need to be. I'm having a blast doing what I'm doing. As I said, I love the design. I love working with people. And I love, the adulation when people when I connect with them and they say, hey, I got your cabinet. When guys start writing reviews for you, it's highly unusual that a guy will take the time to write a full page review and post it on Google or on my website or wherever. I mean, highly unusual. So what does that
Yeah.
mean? That means you really did something. You connected. You made them really, really super happy. That's what gives me joy. And on top of that, I make some money too. What the hell? It's nice to go to Costa Rica every few months.
For sure. Would love to go too.
Well, you should. It's It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. I've been to a lot of places, and it's the blue zone. Part of Costa Rica has the blue zone, where these people
Yeah.
who live to 100 plus, Costa Rican. I'm not going to get off on Costa Rica, but it is one of the nicest places on earth. Seriously, the people there couldn't be nicer. They don't have cops don't run around with guns. You don't even see a cop. They don't have an army. They have nothing.
Really?
Oh, the U.S.
I
takes no.
didn't
The
know
U.S.
that.
takes care of them. You know,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's the way it goes. But anyway, that's my story. And anybody who'd like to follow, I mean, I have no problem with anybody calling me, and my number is, if they have questions, I'd be more than happy. I am not a formal consultant. I don't charge. I could. People have asked me to be a consultant, but maybe someday when I have a dribble cup or something,
Yeah.
when I'm 98 years old. No, I mean, no, seriously, if I have no problem, especially young people. I love talking to young people. I really do. Especially the ones that will have a dialogue, that will listen, that will communicate back and forth. And I don't like. Listen, I used to be a smart ass myself too. I could show you pictures of what I was a hippie back then. I mean,
Oh, really? I wouldn't have guessed.
oh my God, you should see. I won't even say some of the things we let me put it to you this way. We did everything that you heard back then. Yeah, we did it all. Everything. There wasn't one thing. I mean, we didn't go. There was a line that we did not cross in terms of some of the recreational things. But certainly the music, the sex, the protests back then were a bit different than what we have going on. Right? Back then it was Vietnam War. That was a serious, serious event. We had hundreds of thousands of young men and women that were dying, and that was something to protest about. Not this crap that I see these kids on college campuses. I like to smack them all in the head because they have no freaking idea what they're talking about. They really don't. I'm sorry to say. I don't want to see anybody die. I don't give a shit whether you're Jewish, Palestinian, what, it doesn't matter. Especially children. No, I don't want to see that. And I don't want to get into a whole discussion about Israel right now. But the bottom line is, where was I going with all this? I don't know. No, the bottom line is that I had a very, very strong educational background. I had a very strong. My father and I, we didn't see eye to eye for a long time, and then we finally did, and he became my best friend, and I miss him terribly, and I wish he was around today so I could show him all the wonderful things that I've accomplished. Not the least of which is my granddaughter. I think my mother. She died in 1989 from breast cancer, so it was. These are all life experiences the culmination of which that brings you to where you are today. I am absolutely, I am the same person in a lot of ways, but I'm really much, much different person. I was a scared little rabbit when I was a kid. Seriously. I couldn't get on a phone and talk to somebody. I was afraid. My mother used to have to get on, believe it. I mean, now I can't stop talking, right?
It's great.
Back then, I had no self confidence at all. It took a long time. It took a long time and a lot of abuse, both internally as well as externally. And that people have to understand that journey too. It's a psychological, physical journey, and it can be very painful at times. It's not just about business; it's personal. As Michael Corleone would say, it's business.
Yeah.
You know, and you gotta you gotta be able to roll with the punches. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. Not everybody is going to be like I see on CNBC. Billionaire companies. That's it happens to very, 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 very small percentage. Most of us clowns are small business people trying to make a living, trying to get a few bucks. That's what we do. My wife, thank God, she's turning 70 in a week. She's beautiful. She took just a little side story. It's kind of cool. She had taken my granddaughter to something, I don't some party or whatever, or maybe to get a haircut. The kid had to get a haircut or something like that. So she's talking with maybe the hairstylist or something, and she said, "Oh, you're her mother, right? You're Bella's mother." She said, "No, I'm her grandmother." I said, "Really? You're a grandma?" I mean, that's how my wife looks. Very, very. She looks a lot younger than I. She's really a very beautiful young lady, and And so I've been with her for 52 years. So that if that's a good way to end this conversation on this particular note. One of the key things in my life that has really been transformational has been the relationship that I've had with my wife. It hasn't been all bed of roses for 52 years, but I met her when she was 16 years old and fell in love with her. And, a couple of years later, got married. And we've been together ever since. And she's been there for me 100,000%. And I've been there for her as much as I could possibly be. Not always the greatest husband in the world, but certainly I've always done whatever I could to sustain my family and make sure that they're well protected and living in a nice place, which we do. And everything I have, I am not one of those who is going to spend all my money on myself. And I mean, we're going to do some more traveling, and stuff like that. But I'm constantly, Furnitech is more passion for me. The stock market is more wealth creation, and I know how to play the game. So I can turn money, I can turn investments into a lot of money within a very short period of time. Seriously, I'm not boasting about it, but you got to have the proper understanding and the mindset. You can, to make $30,000 in a week is something that a lot of people do, including me. It can be done. Money, you know what it is? Money makes money if you're using it smart. If you're smart
Yeah.
and using it wisely, and you have a long, like Warren Buffett, you're looking long term. Okay, you're going to buy Nvidia, you're going to buy Apple, you're going to buy Microsoft. Well, it's down today. I'm panicking. No, you can't be like that. These are great companies. They're great for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to, the reasons. I'm not going to go into them. They're all leader companies. Can you imagine a world without Apple or a world without Microsoft?
Yeah.
Seriously, think about that. Today's world, not having enterprise software, not having this, when you ever leave the house and you don't have your phone with you, how you panic? I mean, you can't oh my God, I can't drive down the street. I have to go back and get my phone. So this is compelling stuff. When you have this is really important. I mean, Apple has a user base of close to 2 billion freaking people. I mean, what that entails and what that means and how significant that is on every level is just it's mind boggling. So the services business, yeah, the phone is important, but all the apps that we pay for, all the, iTunes that you don't think twice. Oh, 99 cents. What's the big deal? Well, it turns into thousands of dollars every year. All the music that I download because I want to have it. I want to own it. Anyway, that's my story. I could talk forever about these topics, but I think it's just passion, sincerity, a lot of brain power, money, your health, family support of your friends. These are the ingredients that are required, and having a great idea, a really good idea that you have vetted with your friends. Talk to people. Ask them, what do you think? Before you start investing any kind of money into anything, what do you think? I think back now. I mean, the amount of money it's mind boggling. I mean, there used to be a time when we had slow periods. I'm telling you, I was beside myself because I didn't have the wherewithal that I have today. It's very, very important. Money is very, very health and money and friends and family. Those are the things. Okay, that will create either a positive environment to create a company or just go work for somebody. And
Yeah.
95% of people will just go work for somebody because they can't handle the stress. They can't handle the anguish. They can't handle the lack of money, not paying your bills, having credit card companies, sending you collection. I've been through all of that. One quick note, okay? This would never happen again. My first company, when I was 23 years old, after several years, it failed miserably. I ended up in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer because I internalized all the grief, all the pain, all the stress. I woke up one night to go to the bathroom. I passed out on the floor. My blood pressure was like almost zero. I mean, I'm serious. I was for all intent and purposes this close. I saw the white light. I swear to God, I saw the white light. My wife is hovering over me, crying hysterically. She calls 911. I wanted just to reach out and say to her, I'm happy, I'm peaceful, I'll see you later. I mean, that's how I felt, by the way. Okay, so they brought me to the hospital and they said, your husband is just, as a, thank God you got him here now because 10 minutes later he'd be dead. So I went through that. That was part of starting a company.
Yeah, hopefully we can avoid that.
Hopefully you can avoid that. But that's how I felt so strongly. So what happened? I get out of the hospital. I had a bleeding ulcer. I get out of the hospital, back to health. I'm, 24, 25 years old. I get a call from this gentleman at American Express. Mr. Shupack, I see we got a little problem here. How are we going to resolve this problem? And I said, well, I don't know right now. I said, I just got out of the hospital. He said, would you do me a favor? I said, sure. He said, you're in New York, right? I said, yeah. He said, could you come down to meet me in New York City, downtown at our headquarters? Would you mind doing that? And I said, shit, why not? Okay, so I would go down. I meet a vice president of American Express, and he sits down with this bushy, I had a big afro at the time, and he said, tell me what happened. And I told him exactly where I thought I made mistakes and what I would never do again. And he said, well, I think you're very sincere. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep your card. I'm going to let you keep the card. I'd prefer you not use it for a little while. Okay. And let's talk about how you're going to pay it back. Okay. What kind of income do your wife, whatever, what can you afford to do? I worked out something with him. I'll never, ever, ever forget that. It would never, ever happen again. Never. For a little kid to be called downtown to American Express. I mean, think about that for a second. It's mind boggling. It'll never, ever happen again. Okay. And I will never forget this gentleman. And I've had American Express, and it was like 1980 or something like that. So, yeah, my first credit card was the Diners Club.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think it was a very, very insightful episode, and I'm sure people will love it. So, um, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you. Pleasure.